Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel for another Elite 11 team reveal. We've got Mark on the channel this week. He is having an exceptional season once again. In this week's video we're going to be previewing Blank Gameweek 26 and we're going to be giving you some options around the budget midfielders who might be making their way into your thoughts ahead of Game Week 26. Timestamps are on the video if you do want to hop around, and of course you can head over to fantasyfootballfix.com if you do want to get your push notifications enabled for all of our elite managers. But guys, without further ado, let's get right into it. Guys, welcome back to the channel, and Mark, welcome back. And look, let me say straight away, thank you for your perseverance tonight. We are recording on Sunday night. It's no longer evening. We started in the evening, but it is Sunday night. We've had a technological nightmare. So guys, if there are any tech gremlins on today's video, then apologies, and hopefully you can let us off just this once. But Mark, welcome back, mate. How are you doing?
Hi Tom, nice to see you. I'm doing good, thanks. Happy Sunday evening.
Thank you very much. Mark, we can see on the right hand side, look at that beautiful upward trend and upward trajectory and a latest overall rank inside the top 50,000. So you've got to be pleased with how the season's been panning out, mate, right?
Yeah, very happy with it. Game week 8, I was really struggling and I just decided to make the wild card happen then, even though I'd hoped to hold on to it. And it's been good since then. I think I was at 2.3 million in game week 8. And I've had 9 green arrows in a row. I'm currently on 10, but as we'll get onto in a few minutes, I'm not too confident that's going to hold up.
Okay.
Given what everybody. But yeah, really happy.
Well, I mean, you're
really happy.
Yeah, you should be happy. You should be happy, man. And it's been an absolutely chaotic game week, hasn't it? The double game week element, of course, but we've had returning Mo Salah. We've had injuries all over the gaff, and we've got people missing chances left, right, and centre. But it's what we're here for. Mark, we can see that your triple captain chip is active. Of course, I suspect lots of the people watching as well will be in a similar situation. So let's take a look at how double game week 25 is playing out for you so far. Okay, guys, so we can see here on Mark's screen, we can see the triple captain, as I mentioned. It is live. It is active on Erling Haaland. Goodness me, he could have had an absolute hatful against Chelsea, couldn't he? But he walked away with just the 3 appearance points, I guess. So, you know, it's one of those, isn't it, for Erling Haaland? I guess three points with the triple captaincy applied to him. Phil Foden similarly not picking up much there, and Nathan Ake as well. Let's start with the Man City game. Mark, what was your feeling going in? Were there any kind of reservations around the triple captaincy chip, and how did you see that game play out against Chelsea? And what kind of hopes do you have ahead of the Brentford fixture in midweek?
Yeah, I mean, to open up on the trip captaincy, I couldn't really care less about it, to be honest, this season. I think he had 260% ownership. Couldn't care less what Haaland does this week, really. You know, I think the debate going in was, would you captain Solanke or Haaland? And when you reduce that debate, it's, would you rather have Haaland this week or Solanke in 28? You know, because everyone's going to captain the one that they don't triple captain in the other week. Sure. So I don't care. I think the best reason to captain Haaland this week, outside of his own merits, were that it lets you get rid of the triple captainship. I don't care what Haaland did yesterday. I think it was his highest XG in a home game all season. I think it was his 5th highest XG. And in all the games where he got more, he got multiple returns. So he's going to be disappointed with himself. You know, but he could score a hat-trick on
every
Wednesday
chance.
or Tuesday.
Every chance, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And Phil Foden, how did you see, you know, he off the back of such a monumental haul previously and recently, right? And then positionally playing a little bit wider, it seemed to me. Did you think there was anything concerning about Foden's game there in 25, or are you still just thinking, you know what, that could have been very different very easily as well, and nothing to particularly concern you ongoing in terms of his ongoing selection?
I'm not too worried about his ongoing selection because I think he's going to move out of most teams around 28. I think he'll be the avenue to Son for a lot of people, but yeah, not too concerned. Ownership means he's largely a redundant pick at this point. The thing that had me concerned yesterday was you know, the obvious City omission in my team, De Bruyne, and he's my real bogeyman this week. I could have got him in, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I brought Aki in instead, and it was, yeah, sure, it's frustrating when you don't get returns, but nobody got returns in that game except for Walker owners.
Yeah.
So it's like it didn't happen, really.
Yeah.
We move on to Tuesday.
We move on to Tuesday, don't we? It's the beauty of a double game week, and by the time people consuming this video, potentially there could have been some more points as well. So we shall see. Looking through the rest of the team, Mark, I did want to get your thoughts around Estupiñán as well in the back line. I think Gabriel, we don't need to belabor that point, but Estupiñán, he's come on for the 1-pointer again. He's been playing. I think it was Corey who mentioned to me about him sort of positionally playing more centre back rather than the rampaging full back of yesteryear. What are your thoughts around him? He's not that cheap, is he? Is he someone who's on the chopping block for you, or is he still a hold at this point?
He's a hold, but not because of his own merits. I brought him in when Trent got injured, and it's really been a terrible signing. It's been my worst signing of the season, really. And I've signed Reece James, so that's saying a lot in terms of how bad he's been. So I brought him in. He got 8 points immediately, I think, against West Ham. He was playing pretty much left centre back in that game. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine to have a 5 million defender who's starting games. And the big mistake here, as it so often is expected minutes. I wasn't certain of his minutes for 2 reasons. He's got competition. But also De Zerbi's been doing this all season.
He has.
He's been, and twice now, Estupiñán's been a fall guy when they've had very bad first halves against Villa, and recently he came off at halftime, and it was a bad move. I think anybody who got Estupiñán for Trent is in the bad move club with me.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have done it.
I've got to ask you, Mark, as well. I mean, clearly the success that you've had over the years speaks for itself, of course, but it does feel like a move that's not your typical kind of approach. But having known you pretty well now, and you've been on the series a lot there, was that something that you knowingly went into and say this is not a typical Mark Mansfield move, but there's a big upside, or was there kind of no one else compelling that you sort of thought about? It does feel to me like he had a few things that normally you would be telling me, don't go there, Tom. So what was going on there?
Yeah, I thought, if you look at certainly all the attackers, Palmer, Porro, Gabriel, everyone in that team, bar Aki, they're all guys who can return twice in a game. And that's what I always look for, the guys who can get 15 points.
Yeah.
And he's not really done it this season, but I remember the game at the Emirates last season where Estupiñán got 17 points. But the mistake I made here was not doing my homework.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I didn't do my homework. It's just I made a lazy decision. I should have looked further. I should have thought about the European campaigns. I think it happens in a season that people start getting lazy, and you start making a few bad decisions, and I made a few bad decisions in a short period of time, and a wake-up call for me to start paying attention again. So I go for high upside players. I'm Aki. I wouldn't call him a high upside player, but I got him for different reasons. But normally Estupiñán would be right up my street. But
yeah, no, I get it. And I mean, some of the other content we've been putting out over the last week or so as well was sort of extolling the virtues of Nathan Ake as well. And it's a pretty limited selection pool for the Man City defence, but he had been sort of threatening, hadn't he? So I can understand that one as well. Mark, looking at that midfield, Diogo Jota, I should say, nasty looking injury. Obviously, he'd already picked up a lovely assist in that game as well. Super unfortunate for owners there to see him go off injured early in that game, and presumably not going to feature in midweek. We don't know at the time of recording, but I mean, outside of that Liverpool front two, did you have any feelings around the Liverpool defence as well? I know there was a lot of talk around the cheap goalkeeper move. Virgil van Dijk had some interest as well, and the replacement right back and what have you. Or did you just think, what, these guys aren't looking defensively sure? What was your read on Liverpool defence?
To start with, on the decision not to bring in any Liverpool players for 25 other than the 2 I had, I felt like this week's decisions were just about as complex as they get for FPL, because you had the shiny carrot. Can carrots be? You had the dangling carrot. I'm not sure carrots are shiny. Yeah, you had the shiny bauble of the double game week, followed by the blank in 26, the probable blank in 29. So My team is thin enough as it
Yeah, I get it.
is, gone into 26, and I just didn't feel it was worth bringing one in and out for likely one, maximum one clean sheet. And I wouldn't, Luton can score,
Of
so
course.
we'll see how Wednesday goes. But no, there wasn't a consideration to bring in a Liverpool
No.
player. The the consideration that I had for this week, and frustrating as this week has been, I'm really happy because the alternative transfer that I had to bring in
Go on.
Aki was to bring in KDB for Palmer and Harry Maguire for Lascelles and to bench Watkins.
Oh, Mark. Wow, this video would
And
have been different. Goodness
yeah,
gracious. Gosh, you didn't tell me that. Okay.
yeah. So when people talk about FPL being a game of luck, there's the ball bounce of the ball
Yeah.
luck, but then there's this really marginal decision
Yeah.
luck. And in the prior week, I had brought in Jota right on the deadline for Salah, and it worked out well. But I benched Watkins, and I really felt that was a poor decision by me. So even though I got an extra 5 points, I just felt it was a really weak, poor, emotional
I
decision,
see.
and I think that influenced the fact that I was more
Okay.
conservative this week because I realized I had played FPL badly.
Yeah.
So I went for the long term route here where I kept my two Spurs players for 29. I, replaced a defender who was no good to me with one with slightly better long term prospects. And on Aki, I've been talking to someone on Monday saying, "What do you think of Diaz? What do you think of
Yeah.
Walker?" And it was really like, then Garvidal turned out to be injured, and it's just Aki fell into my lap. So that's how I ended up there. But
I see.
I
Interesting.
really wanted De Bruyne, really
Yeah.
wanted him.
I,
And he could have got a big score yesterday.
he could. He definitely could. And he goes again midweek, by all accounts. So, we'll see. I got to ask you more strategically, Mark, not they may be localized to the last week, but on the rare occasions where you feel that sinking feeling of, as you put it, I've played FPL badly, something I'm very familiar with. How do you sort of what is the sort of approach to that? I think it's quite easy to sort of go on a bit of FPL tilt, right, and try and overcorrect and course correct with by and sort of double down on that is my experience as well. So when those things do happen for you, what's your kind of your advice to the viewers around how you should react to that? Because people do play the game badly in isolated moments, right? You just sort of alluded to that.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to analyze your own gameplay and realize when you have played badly and be real
Mm-hmm.
honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I think this one, I hope this doesn't sound immodest, but it would have been easy for me on this one to say, "Oh, happened they great. Look at that genius move that got me extra
Mm-hmm.
points." But
Mm-hmm.
I was, I was pretty disappointed in myself, even an hour or two after the deadline. I
Yeah.
just call it giddiness. People get the week builds, and you
Yeah.
have an idea on Monday, and that my idea on Monday was maybe I get a Man City defender, and then the week builds, and you have all people like us doing content,
Mm.
pushing names, and you get to Friday, and you're foaming at the mouth, you're semi-rabid, and then it gets to Saturday morning, and you do something stupid,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
I think I don't know how you protect against it, but I think you've got to recognize it.
Yeah. I
If you
don't think
don't
you.
recognize it,
Yeah. I don't think you can protect against it too much, Mark. I mean, you're a seasoned player, great record. I've been playing for a long time too. Nowhere near as good a record, but these things do still happen, right? I think it's probably human nature that the question was around how you respond to that, and you kind of said, recognize it and make sure that you can respond then after you've kind of admitted it, I
yeah,
guess.
I think recognize it and don't make excuses
Mm,
afterwards. Don't go looking for this is named any person on Twitter or anything, but don't go looking for doubt he created
I see.
9 chances. This kind of stuff. Like, there's no use trying to justify
I
something
see.
after the event. You either believed in it or you
Yeah.
didn't. And I made a bad move. I didn't believe in
Yeah.
it, and I learned from that. I think,
Exactly.
and it fed into my decision this week.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Good
but
discussion. Enjoyed that. I
yeah.
the forward lines that you've got, all the forward options here. So obviously Haaland, don't need to discuss him particularly. I don't think triple captaincy as well. But with Darwin and the double, that was presumably quite a a straightforward, compelling choice then, even with the blank in 26 and Ollie Watkins there. It does feel to me like it's quite refreshing this season, though, Mark. We've got a nice pool of forwards to choose from, right? I mean, Callum Wilson's out injured now, but he's been in the mix. We've had Isak. You've now got Rasmus Højlund as well in the mix. We've got Ivan Toney, for example, the three guys that you're looking at there. Dominic Solanke as well. Quite refreshing, right, to have a pool of forwards following multiple seasons where we've talked about, the dearth of strikers and how difficult it is. Quite nice this season to have those kind of options, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I think it gives everybody a good chance to do something different.
Yeah.
The flip side of it, well, not the flip side, but what's kind of been a bit unfortunate about this season is usually what you'd like to do is you get your nailed defenders, Gabriel, these guys, and Porro. But what's kept happening is the defenders have kept getting injured, and people have to spend their transfers there. And we could have played a little bit more, hokey cokey maybe with the forwards. It's been bizarre. I think there's been more defensive transfers this season than probably ever. But in terms of the forwards, pick who you like, and they're probably going to come in.
That's right.
One in every 3 weeks.
Yeah, it makes it hard to sell, right? Doesn't it? Because it's not. It feels like there are not many strikers go a multitude of sort of 4 game weeks on the spin without returning. So you always kind of feel like, well, recent memory suggests that this player is worth a hold, doesn't it? So yeah, it's really interesting to see how those trios. I've had various folks on this series, of course, Mark and yourself and Andrew and Corey and Tim historically, and Craig, and it always tends to be slightly different, which for me is fab to see how you're all setting things up very slightly differently from one another.
Yeah, I think the way the games have had so many goals, it kind of causes us to challenge conventional wisdom, because you can't now assume that because a player is playing Manchester City, because a player is playing Newcastle, they're not going to score.
Good point. Yeah.
So, there's so many goals in every game that, someone like Carlton Morris, whereas in seasons gone by, you'd say no chance of a goal against Manchester United, no chance of a goal against Liverpool. Every chance now.
Good point.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think. And this, one of my transfers this week is very likely Darwin to Solanke. And normally we wouldn't go near it because, against Manchester City, what hope does the person have? But now you think every hope.
Yeah, compelling.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Odds on, for sure. Well, look, that's a nice segue. I mean, there are other people that we haven't talked about, the likes of Bukayo Saka, for example, with a massive 15-point haul as well. They were really good, weren't they, as well? I don't think we need to talk about Saka. It feels like he's a bit of a sort of ever-present for a lot of managers as well. So I think we should move on. There are some people on the bench there, Cole Palmer, for example, Pedro Porro injured, but that's going to move on and sort of focus in on the Game Week 26 selection. So let's take a look at your bus team ahead of Game Week 26. Okay, so obviously we've got multiple games to still play out, Mark. We're not even completed double Game Week 25, of course. So, and there's Champions League and there's European fixtures as well. So take this with a pinch of salt, but look at this, 3.6 million in the bank. We've got 2 free transfers up there. That is a typo on our part, so apologies, guys. Mark's got 1 free transfer going into Blank Game Week 26. But this is how it's set up. Obviously, kind of picks itself with the 11 outfielder or the 10 outfielders that you have, I guess, and a question mark over Dubravka or Areola there. 1 free transfer, though, Mark. Is that the way you're leaning then, the Solanke move for you and rolling in with, at best, 10 players?
That is not how I'm leaning at all.
Talk to me, mate. What's the plan?
Well, last week, I think a lot of people took a -4 and several even took a -8. And I thought I would be better using my hits to get myself out of trouble this week, as opposed to using them to get myself in trouble last week.
Okay.
So this is how, this is what I was mentioning about the Liverpool defenders. I'm not going to take a hit on that. I'm going to take a hit on getting players for 26. Sure. And what's unfortunate is that we don't know more about 29.
Well,
because if we did, you could really make hay this week. You could say, okay, I'm going to take loads of hits, get players this week, get players 29, but it's a little bit up in the air.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'll absolutely take a -4. There's no doubt about
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And as you can see from that bus team, if I take a -4, I've got 11. I think Charlie Taylor's going to get back in. So hopefully he'll get 1 point.
Yeah.
I don't expect anything more from him, but okay, it could be a week where 1 point is worth a lot.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Estupiñán gets a start. I can't be confident about that. And then I'll take a -4, -8 to get rid of the two Liverpool boys and potentially Palmer as well.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting one. So Cole Palmer played well, I thought, in the away match at Man City. Obviously, didn't return FPL points for his owners who decided to start him. He's been a great player for owners throughout the course of the season. Still great value. Why are you getting rid of him, Mark? Talk to me. Educate me.
I think he's got the missing game in 26. It's unlikely he plays 28.
Okay.
And it's just simply a matter of maybe you can get someone who'll do better in the 3 weeks, but it'd be easier if someone like Bowen or Kudus was doing well, or if Bailey was locked.
Don't talk to me about West
It's one
Ham.
of these 29 guys.
Yeah, move West Ham
Yeah,
straight
I know,
on.
sorry.
Yeah, we'll move past them very, very quickly.
Yeah. So that's the -8 is a maybe.
Yeah.
But definitely Jota and Darwin go.
Yeah.
So, bad news when a player gets injured.
Yeah.
Good news because you can sell them with clean hands.
Yeah, you know that they're not going to harm you in the next game week, which has happened to many of us, I'm sure, over the course of this season. And it's a nice point, actually, because I mentioned in the intro, Mark, we are going to take a look at some compelling midfield options in that kind of budget price range as well. And there are multiple to pick from as well. And we've pulled some stats together on 4 of them as well. So this is how you're set up. We're expecting there to be at least 2 changes, potentially 3, ahead of Blank Game Week 26 as well. I do just want to move on and take a little look at those fixtures that you mentioned, Mark, because you've alluded to or mentioned game week 29 as well. And I think the managers or the viewers of this show need to be aware that is going to be a big blank game week, but we don't yet know all of the detail. But let's take a look at how it could be shaping up for the upcoming fixtures. Okay, guys, so there's a lot of red on this screen, and that's sort of presenting the story that we are approaching this period where there are blank game weeks coming up and teams that you will have players from who will be missing out. And blank game week 26 upcoming, you can see there that we've got one of those approaching. Game weeks 27 and game week 28 follow, obviously, with game week 28 being a double game week, and then game week 29. Lots that we don't know, Mark, right, with the FA Cup fixtures not having been played out yet, but that is going to be a big blank game week. How are you sort of seeing this little stretch of 4 game weeks, Mark, and also any chips that you're expecting to deploy to navigate your way through them?
I am seeing it very unclearly. The only chip question here for me is, do I free hit in 29 or not? So, for anyone who hasn't been thinking about this too much, broadly speaking, people will intend to either free hit in 29 and likely not wild card till maybe 33 or 34, or alternatively, people will dead end into 29 and then wild card in 30 or 31. So I'm open to either of those strategies. I think we can't really decide upon what to do until we see how the next round of the FA Cup works out in, I think it's starting Tuesday week.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is why I say it's a bit of a shame we don't know what's going on in 29 now, because we could make our 26 ones. But it looks like, of the question mark games there, it's the one that's most likely to be a game that gets played is Luton against Forest. And that really doesn't help with this week's decisions, I think. So as your graphic outlines there, West Ham, Villa, Fulham, Brentford and Burnley have a game in 29. And this is why I didn't sell Richarlison. I could have gone straight from Richarlison to KDB this week, but I didn't. And I didn't sell an injured Paro because I hope they'll both play in 29. And I was very much taking that view in this last week.
Yeah, Pedro Porro, obviously, ruled out for a couple of weeks when Ange Postecoglou gave his press conference ahead of the weekend game against Wolves as well. So we'll see whether or not he makes it back. And Heung-min Son, I'm sure, will come into people's thoughts. You're a Richarlison owner, I'm sure a lot of people are as well. And they do have a nice upcoming run as well, don't they? Not just that fixture that they have in game week 29, but it's actually a nice upcoming run for them. And they're still, competing in the Premier League for a top 4 spot, aren't they? So be interesting to see how the Spurs assets definitely play out. I've got to ask around the Solanke selection. Mark, he played obviously against Newcastle just upcoming. Look, he looks great in every game, I'm saying. I know they've had a little tough run then. You're getting him ahead of a game against Man City. Do you think he could potentially stay the course over the rest of the campaign after this? I mean, if he gets a fixture in game week 29, for example, do you think he's a player that might actually see you through until the end of the season?
I don't think I'd ever say that, and especially in the context of what you said about there being so many good strikers. We saw Højlund today. I think whatever fixture runs come over the rest of the season, we'll be jumping on this striker, that striker. Probably worth bearing in mind on your wild card. Get a full squad, so you've got 5 defenders you can play. Yeah, sure, you'll get some bench points, but you don't have to spend your transfers on defense. So there's that. Looking at this graphic, I think the thing people should think about is, first of all, establish the things that you will need to do in the next few weeks, and they're your constraints for what you do. So first and foremost, you will need Solanke in 28. You'll probably want him in 27. If you're not going to free hit in 29, I'm pretty sure you're going to want Son in 29. And these are the things that you have to start building around as you move forward if you're not going to free hit.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, people will have seen, obviously, the haul that Mo Salah picked up off the bench in the Brentford game. Circumstance seemed to dictate that he came on earlier than I suspect they had planned, right? And there's some noise doing the rounds on social media, as I'm sure you've picked up on already, Mark, and the viewers may have done as well, around the possibility that he might even miss out on minutes in the midweek fixture ahead of that cup final as well, because he was coming back from a not insignificant injury as well. Just on Mo Salah, obviously no plans to get him ahead of a blank game week in 26, but have you started to think around what a Mo Salah team would look like for you, Mark? Would it need a wild card, or would you be able to shoehorn him in? And what are your kind of observations on him for game week 27 and beyond?
This is a can I'm going to kick down the road probably to wild card because he misses 26, probably 29, and he has Manchester City in 28. I think he's got Forest in 27, great fixture. But I'll write that one out. I had him until last week. I held with him through the AFCON and then sold him for Jota. But that's fine. So it wouldn't take a lot of surgery to get him back in, but I don't think I'll be going there. But what we can say about him and what happened yesterday is this was not the plan. They did not want him on the first half of that game. And he's got the whole that might jeopardise his appearance against Luton, which people thought was the haul. So it might balance out. It's
we'll see how that goes, especially ahead of that cup final. I appreciate they are in the Premier League going for the title, and I'm sure that will be prioritised. But it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. All right, great. We've mentioned, so he costs an absolute fortune, obviously, but part of the purpose of today's video was to give the viewers some options around some budget midfielders. We've mentioned Cole Palmer already and the potential options you're exploring to remove Cole Palmer. So let's take a look at some of the budget midfielders who might enable those sorts of moves. Okay, guys, so we could have chosen a fair few midfielders here. We've actually opted for 4 midfielders there. Numbers in green are obviously the quote-unquote winners in terms of the stats and the value that we've pulled out for these guys. We've got David Luiz, who's been in my team, as I'm sure I've mentioned once or twice on this series, for months and months and months. Had a great season last season, has been continuing that. Got Garnacho, who's still under 5 million. These stats do not include today's performance in the victory at Luton, but still you can sort of get an indicative view there. They've got Hwang Hee-chan back from Asia Cup duties and back in the team for Wolves, and Pedro Neto as well, who's recently returned from a pretty significant injury as well, Mark. So a few options here. I'm sure there are some other ones that you could have included as well. Any way you're particularly leaning here, or would you say that they all present equally compelling cases?
Okay, let's take them one by one then. You asked for it, Tom.
Yeah.
You asked
give
for
it. Give it me.
Okay. Okay, let's start with Luis.
Yeah.
He's been returning well. He's got penalties. These are good things. He's got game week 29.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. We have some doubts now because Villa are being decimated by injury. They still won nonetheless, but they're losing important players further back the pitch. Will it affect their build-up? Will it affect how they build the play? Will Luis be moved back a little bit? That's the kind of narrative suggestion we've heard. I haven't looked, but I'd need to see the evidence that his role has changed in the absence of Kamara. Maybe not. I feel he's not my kind of pick.
No.
I know it's penalties and so on, and he's done well. He's not my kind of pick, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. And I would also say something that I've observed as an owner as well, Mark. I don't have the empirical evidence here to back it up, but it does feel like he presents a super stronger case when they're playing at home. I'm much more inclined to feel comfortable to bench him in away fixtures. Home fixtures do seem to make a real tangible difference to his output, is how it's felt as an owner as well. So just another kind of thing to consider if you're considering David Luiz. But good observations.
But as you can see, his numbers are good. His points are good. Garnacho is on the absolute other end of the scale from Luiz. If Luiz is a predictable entity to a degree, Garnacho is just like a cracker going off. Anyone who saw the game today, I just checked out. He got 0.7 XG. He got 0.25 XA. I'm not a great believer in XA the way it's calculated. For example, his assist today was a shot that was going wide. But he is dangerous. There's no doubt about it. He could have got a gazillion points today. He was true on goal. Just if he was a year or two older, I think he would have got double figures today. He would have been a little bit more calm. His minutes are so good. He's essentially.
It's funny, isn't it, Mark? Just whilst you're looking those up, because there's been a sort of shift, hasn't there? He was not so long ago. He was operating on the left hand side of the attack, wasn't he? And Rashford sort of won that spot back, and he's moved to the right, and it hasn't made any difference in terms of that threat, has it, whatsoever? Or indeed his minutes, despite Anthony being available by all accounts. Yeah,
it looks like since game week 11 he's been ever present.
Yeah,
and the mess that is Manchester United really suits him. Because he does well on the counter attack, and United are chaos now. They can't control things. They get under pressure. They get caught out the back, and then they do a counter attack. And this is Garnacho. Like, he loves this.
Great price as well, man, isn't he? Absolutely wonderful price.
Yeah. He's very likely to be one of my transfers, I think.
I see.
If you can handle City in 27. If you can bench him, which I suspect people should be able to do, then I think he's a great option.
You wouldn't like him as a counter-attacking option against Man City as well?
No.
Not in the derby? No? Fair enough. I mean, you're the United fan. I just wonder with them camped in, and they'll presumably having to play a bit more of a low block, but it's quite a firm answer, so I don't want to push you on it. What about these Wolverhampton options then? Do you have a tendency leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, this is a funny one. This is I don't know if chalk and cheese is the right phrase, but you've got two very different propositions here. You've Neto, who's an assist machine, and Hwang Hee-chan, who certainly in the absence of Cunha is the finisher. And Hwang is on penalties. But I had Neto earlier in the season. Neto's one of these players I just like. I shouldn't take him, but I just like to watch him. Yeah, he's so I was looking at this today on SofaScore, and
Mm-hmm.
SofaScore is an app that shows you heat maps.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting that if you look at Wang's heat map, it was more central and attacking, but not very much of the ball. And Neto was, as you'd expect, very heavy and hot on the wings.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And you think, yeah, I'll get Wang here. But if you look at the average position, Neto was far more advanced. He was high up on the left, I think. I would have thought he'd be on the right, but anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And Wang was behind a little bit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you got two contradictory kind of pieces of information there. Given the chaos that is refereeing in the Premier League, this era of our lives,
Sure.
you've got to respect the penalty takers a lot. It's Sheffield United. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that either or both of these guys gets double figures.
Yeah.
And if you're hopeful that they'll get a double in 29, maybe getting both of them is good. But for me, one or the other need to come in, I think.
Yeah, I like it, definitely. And I was on Pedro Neto in the same way, Mark, as well. I know you mentioned that. And he was returning regularly before that pretty nasty injury that sounded pretty innocuous originally, but then kept him out for a long time, didn't it? But it looked like he's back to his best in that game against Tottenham, didn't it? On the weekend, he looked fit and sharp and super attacking, and so did Wolves. To be fair, they looked like a good side.
I think like the two exciting picks, if you're a person who watches matches, are Garnacho and Neto. If you're a person who just picks up the scores at the end of the game week, that doesn't matter so much, and maybe you're better going with the two penalty takers.
Yeah, I like it. Well rounded off, mate. Like I say, to include it just on one graphic here, we've just got these four. Were there any other midfield options? You know, we've got Anthony Gordon operating for Newcastle, for example. Anyone else that's on your mind, or was it really going to be between this cohort of players for you in terms of the budget midfielders?
I have the money to spend, so I'll have a look around. I think, if Rashford had scored a brace today, what would we all be saying? There is an opportunity for people who have not gone double Arsenal defence.
That's a good point. Yeah, anyone leaping out? Odegaard, obviously impressive in over the weekend, and they off the back of 2 thumping victories, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you don't assume that's going to continue, but even against Liverpool, they were really impressive. They've clicked. There's no doubt about it. Odegaard's there, Martinelli's there, Trossard is there, but you've got Havertz is even there. Like, if you're, I've thrown out 2 names there, Rashford and Havertz. If you're in the doldrums and you need to kickstart something, give it a go.
Like it.
People are going to jump on Wang Hee-chan this week. You're not, that's not the way to get a differential. Rashford, Odegaard, Havertz, these kind of guys. I'm not strongly advocating for them, but I'm saying if you need to give something a go, you need to buy a ticket.
I love it. Nice way to round off. Well, I say round off, Mark. I believe it that you might have another thing that you would like to mention as we wrap up the video. Something about a YouTube channel that people might want to be checking out. So, queued you up, mate. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I haven't prepared anything here, but January was a very quiet month for me. I stayed off the drink. There was very little football on, and purely out of a sense of boredom, I started playing around with a bit of software one day, and I started a YouTube channel of all things. It's pretty rough and ready at the moment. I work in IT, so I'm just a bit of a person who likes to play around with some stuff. So I just started making videos. I make 1 or 2 a week, depending on how my time is.
Sure.
Maybe it's the same as what loads of people are doing, but I don't really get into the stats too much. Just more my objective feelings on things, and part of that is statistics and all the things that I assimilate. But yeah, I've just got a channel going. Who knows how long it'll go for, but I'm enjoying it. And if you don't think that everything I say is awful drivel, then give it a try and see if you like it.
Yeah, man. I've already checked out one of the videos, Mark, when I heard about the channel, and would definitely encourage guys to head on over. I will pop the link in the video description for Mark's channel, and do please head on over there and give it a follow as well. And of course, I mean, some of today's discussion has been around your kind of thoughts and observations and strategic decision making, Mark, which I found so interesting talking to all of you guys as well. So I'm sure people will head over to get similar thoughts. Mark, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap things up ahead of Blank Gameweek 26?
No, I don't think so. I think, the main themes of what we've been talking about are maybe take a measured approach to what will happen in game week 29. And my main hope this week is that Kevin De Bruyne starts on the bench and doesn't come off it at any point. And then I should have a good game week.
Lovely. All right, mate. Well, look, thanks again for your perseverance this evening. I know how much of a nightmare it was at the beginning, and hopefully we've managed to produce a good video that people have enjoyed. And guys, if you have enjoyed it, then do please smash a like on the video on your way out. And I should also say, guys, if you head over to fantasyfootballfix.com and head to the match stats section on that website as well, there are some awesome tools there that also have some great heat maps in the same way that Mark described, in terms of if you are looking at the nuances of how people have got on, I should say, in individual games. So I would encourage you to do that as well. Guys, we will be back with you next week when Blank Game Week 26 is in the books, and we'll be looking ahead to Game Week 27. So have a great week. I'll talk to you all then. Bye bye.